seems that 50 billion quid's worth of our banknotes has simply gone missing. Financial chiefs have lost track of 50 billion in notes, according to the public spending watchdog. This money is not being used for transactions or in household savings. They speculate that it could be in overseas holdings, unreported domestic savings, or in the shadow economy, drugs, etc., illegal drugs. But basically, the National Audit Office, which supervises such matters, admits that little is known about where this money is. How will that affect our economy? And is it a sign, really, that cash is on its way out, cashless society? Do we even need banknotes anymore? Let's ask economist and the presenter of Booms and Busts, the podcast, Jonathan Davis. Hello, Jonathan.
Hi, Kevin.
50 billion quid missing. How could this happen, and what does it mean?
It can happen, first of all, because people leave money in their jeans and it goes into the washing machine.
Actually, you're right. I've just found 50 billion quid down my jean pocket.
Well, I'll come round and have a chat with you then about that.
No, sorry, carry on.
Money does get lost, of course, but naturally that's not amounting to £50 billion. Just as an aside, a few years ago in India, they effectively banned cash or large value items. Indeed, the European Central Bank, although we're obviously not part of the euro, they stopped allowing the use of 500 euro notes. And very similar things have been happening around the world. There is a gradual increase in action from governments and banks, central banks, to reduce the use of cash in society. Mm-hmm. Getting back to the point, it can happen because I think, two reasons. I think probably we do, of course, have still, thankfully, something of a cash economy. I say thankfully because, if I'm an antique dealer, which I'm not, I want to buy some antiques. I want to buy it there and then. I don't want to have to go through the system, so I'll buy it there and then. If I want to give someone a tip, I give them some cash. I don't want to go through the system. So there's many good reasons why we should have cash. Unfortunately, also a criminal element use cash for insidious reasons. That is the reason why the banks, the central banks and the governments are saying they want to end cash. I think that's problematic. The other reason why we have a whole load of cash, which apparently has gone missing, is because I think people are starting to understand that governments and central banks want to get rid of cash. So they're hoarding it in case they can't go and buy an antique chair. They can't give a tip. They can't do something, give something to their family.
Can't buy any drugs.
Well, that's a criminal issue, clearly. And I'm not suggesting that doesn't happen. What I'm saying is that's always happened, but it hasn't stopped society from progressing. I think if you ban cash, you'll actually be helping society regress, not progress.
This 50 billion quid, is there a possibility there's a suggestion that some of it or a large part of it might be in overseas holdings? Does that mean that some rich person has just got together a load of British cash, gone abroad and used it for whatever purposes that they want?
Well, it's not one person. There'll be a lot of our money which is outside of the country. But again, it goes to why are they hoarding cash? They're hoarding it because they don't want the situation when it comes, and I'm afraid it is probably coming, that the government is going to say you can no longer use cash. It has to be plastic or electronic. And in that situation, the state with a capital S, that's the politicians, the taxman, the civil servants, the men and women in grey suits, shall we say, they know everything about us. They know our movements, they know our payments, they know our receipts. That's what's insidious about this, and that's problematic. Not that £50 billion is being hoarded or is lost, but that they want to get rid of cash. That's the problem.
So, there's no doubt in your mind then that the authorities, that the government would prefer a cashless society in order to keep tabs on us.
Well, that's the way things are going. I mean, when you think about what the state is capable of doing, my goodness, look at 2020. They're locking us down, apparently, in parts of the country again. And yet there are hundreds of doctors and scientists saying it's nonsense. And yet they're doing it without recourse, apparently, to law or indeed justice. So if this is what they can do to us, if we'd written all that in a novel last year, that laughed out of court, as it were, and yet it's happening in Western society in our lifetimes. It's not a science fiction movie. It's actually happening. So if they can do that, goodness knows what they'll do when they know everything else about us.
As an economist, Jonathan, moving on from the 50 billion missing quid, what do you predict is going to happen in the grim months ahead? Because, of course, the furlough scheme is going to end at the end of October. The economic reality of what's coming down the track, I think, is going to hit us right in the face. What do you predict is going to unfold in the weeks and the months to come?
I've been saying since April, before any of the officials were saying it, that we're going to see 1.5 to 3 million extra unemployed. The economy clearly had a massive 25% reduction in its size early in the year, with the surge post-lockdown, which was always going to happen. Even with that, by the end of the year, the size of the economy will be 10% smaller than 2019. And if indeed furlough ends, as you say, and as they say it will, by the end of next month, I'm not absolutely sure that they will end furlough.
I think it better. I think it needs to, don't you?
Well, I'm so delighted to hear you say that to your listeners, because the economy needs to sort itself out. The economy needs to see where it is and let the problems run through the system so that we can get back to normality. But if they do continue furlough, or some semblance of it, then that is simply going to kick the can down the line to the time when the economy will sort itself out. But if they do end furlough, and they know this is what's going to happen, there's going to be immediately hundreds of thousands, possibly a seven-figure sum, 1 or 2 million extra unemployed almost immediately, just before Christmas. So they're politicians. They may or may not do that. I don't know. But the problem is they did furlough full stop. They did it until the end of October. They should have stopped it months ago. Longer term, with much higher unemployment and materially lower in total aggregate household incomes because of reduction in the size of the economy, we're not going to see strong economic growth in 2021. And on top of that, it seems to me that we have the makings of a multi-year house price crash, which we know has an effect on the short-term economy. And on top of that, I'm seeing signs of inflation coming into the system. So put it all together, I'm not seeing us getting back to 2019 levels in the size of the economy for many years.
The government seems only to obsess on beating COVID-19, that health concerns top everything else as far as this government's concerned. They've spent 350 billion quid funding the furlough scheme, maintaining the economy, which basically has ceased to exist. They spent all this money on the Eat Out to Help Out scheme. Boris is talking about spending 100 billion to improve the dubious test and trace scheme. Where the hell, Jonathan, is all this money coming from, and how much longer can they go on spending like a drunken sailor?
You have a finger, and so does the Bank of England. And what they do is they push a button and they electronically print the money. It literally is that ridiculous. They create money electronically or metaphorically out of thin air. That's where the money comes from. And in the short term, it appears, oh, this is all fantastic. And we've got 9.5 million people on furlough, doing very handsomely. Thank you very much. And the economy is even recovering from the lockdown period. So let's just continue to do that. We'll take that to the logical conclusion. We'll never pay taxes again. The government will never need to have any cap on their spending ever. Well, of course, it's not reality. At some point, this extra currency creation is, to go back on something I said a couple of minutes ago, it's bringing in inflation into the system. And as inflation comes in, indeed, the government wants inflation, the Bank of England wants inflation. This makes it more costly to live. It makes it more costly to run our businesses. And that has, therefore, a negative effect on the economy, which has an impact on taxes. And then we go through the system again. But as I say, with higher and higher inflation, and do you know what comes with higher inflation in due course?
Yeah.
Higher interest rates. Think about that. No one's mentioning that, are they?
No. Now, Rishi Sunak, everyone has been heaping praise on him like there's no tomorrow.
Well, he's Father Christmas, isn't he?
Yeah, well, so far he's Father Christmas, but isn't he beginning to border on a kind of economic illiteracy? You can't keep shelling out money like this. In the end, you've got to face the music, and all this has to be paid back. We have to take the rough after this artificial smooth, don't we?
And Kevin, politicians are not economists. They are lawyers or they are investment bankers. Sunak is ex-Goldman Sachs. They're not in the business. You know, you guys in the media generally, you talk about they're running the economy. They're not running the economy. They're pulling various levers and pushing buttons in the economy to suit politics. The people running the economy are the captains of industry, the entrepreneurs. They're running the economy. These guys, as Sir John Knott once said, here today, gone tomorrow. Sir Robin Day said, here today, gone tomorrow politicians. That's what they are. Ultimately, they're in power. That's what they've wanted to be all their lives. And they've achieved it. They've got everything they want. And it's amazing to me, they've got an 1890 majority in the House of Commons. They can do whatever they want. And yet they're treating us all like children. They're destroying the economy. And I'm telling you, they are destroying the economy. I know that they made a decision about lockdown, but they have known, I'm telling you, they have known since April of the errors in the science that they're using. And yet they're still continuing with it for political purposes, whatever those are. It's dreadful what they're doing, but there's nothing we can do about it because they're in power for the next 4 years.
So Rishi Sunak, so far the hero of the hour. My prediction is that after furlough ends, and he's got to end it at the end of October, he's going to go from hero to zero pretty damn quickly. Wouldn't you agree?
And that's where his and Boris Johnson and Matt Hancock's and all the rest of it, the cabinet's problems lie. Because I say they've known since April what's coming down the pike. So they've extended furlough by 3 months and other measures that they've extended because they are terribly afraid. They're terrified. They're narcissists. They're egotists. They don't understand what they are doing ultimately to the economy. And they're pretending and hoping and praying that if they can just keep things extended a little bit longer, then the economy will get back on track. Well, As I say, we went from a level of 100 in February in the economy. We went down to 75. Just work through the numbers. You've got to go up 33% to get back to where you were. There's no way on earth the economy was going to grow 33% in a matter of months. Now, as I say, at the end of the year, the economy will be 10% smaller than 2019. There will be an extra million people unemployed. Next year, there could be an extra 2 million people unemployed.
Jonathan, sorry to interrupt because we're running out of time, but I just want to get something out of you before you go. Surely, given the economic problems that we've got, the abyss that we're in right now, wouldn't it not be wise for the government to just say right now, let's get this country back to normal and at least get the economy running on a proper footage? Because even now, it's running on about 10% steam, and that's not good enough, is it?
They should do, and I truly don't understand why they don't. All I can assume is they're listening to the wrong so-called scientists who have got vested interests and relationships where they shouldn't have. They are certainly not acting in the interests of the people of the United Kingdom.
Well, Jonathan, great to talk to you. Actually, it puts into perspective the fact that we've lost 50 billion quid, but it doesn't really matter with all the other money that we've lost and put down the drain. But great to talk to you, Jonathan. Let's talk again soon. Extremely interesting insights into our terrible predicament at the moment there from Jonathan Davis. He's an economist and presenter of the Booms and Bust podcast. I'm Kevin O'Sullivan, and this is Talk Radio.
Talk Radio.